Noite Discipuli. Today we're going to be going over chapters 3 and 4 and talking about gender, number, and case, and declension. So let me put this down here. Gender, number, case, declension. Let me put down person. And we've already talked about accusative and nominative case. The case of the subject, nominative, and accusative, the case of the direct object. But we're going to be making them plural. Okay, let's go through each of these terms here. Gender refers to whether a noun is masculine, could be an adjective too. Adjectives have to agree with the nouns that they describe. Feminine, and I'm abbreviating this, and neuter. German has the same distinction. Masculine, feminine, and neuter. Spanish and French, most Romance languages have masculine and feminine. Those of you who take French or Spanish know what I'm talking about. In French, chairs are feminine, la chaise. In tables are masculine, le table. In Latin, all nouns are either masculine, feminine, or neuter. If the word is masculine, it'll probably end in US or ER. And I say probably because we have exceptions to everything. Anytime I make a rule, you'll find an exception to it. But for the most part, it falls into place that way. If a word ends in A, it is most likely feminine, as we saw with Maria, Philia. If it ends in UM, it is most likely neuter. Now when I say if it ends in US, ER, A, or UM over here, I'm referring to the way it looks in the vocabulary list at the beginning of the chapter or in the dictionary. In other words, the nominative singular form. The nominative singular. Just one. Philius, some. Servus. ER, magister. Okay? Maria. Philia. A noun ending in A. Villa. A word ending in UM. Bellum. Oppidum. The way it looks in the vocabulary list, the nominative singular form, that's what I'm referring to. So, this refers to the declension of the noun. Okay, here's our declension word here. We're skipping down a ways here from gender. So gender refers to whether a word is masculine, feminine, and neuter. And in most dictionaries, and I think this is true of the dictionary that you have in your book here, will actually give you an M. It doesn't here, but it should do it in the back of the book here. I was just looking in the chapter. It doesn't give you M, F, M, those little letters for a hint. In the dictionary in the back, yes it does. I'm looking at taberna here on page 154, and it says taberna, tabernae, F. And the F means that it's feminine. So every noun has a gender. It's either masculine, feminine, or neuter. Also, every noun belongs in a declension. There are 5 declensions in Latin, 5 of them. And right now we're involved with the first 2. Declension 1, the first declension, declension 2, the second declension. We're not talking about neuters yet, but we will very soon. So we're just sort of going to float around with masculine and feminine. Words that end in A in the nominative singular are going to be first declension. First declension. Now there are some first declension nouns that are masculine. I can think of 5 of them right now. They're called pain words. Pain meaning you take the P for poeta, A for agricola, the word for farmer, I for insula or incula, the word for inhabited, and the N for nauta, meaning sailor. They're masculine nouns that got stuck in a feminine declension. But for the most part, 98% of all the nouns that you meet that end in A will be in the first declension and will take first declension endings. They will take first declension endings. We're going to have a noun chart that we're going to start filling in and putting together. You'll find that noun chart in files for downloading. All right, if the word ends in US or ER, it is most likely going to be in the second declension, and it's going to be masculine. So you're also going to have neuter nouns in that second declension. We'll talk about that in our next practice that will come up here. Number refers to whether a noun is singular or plural. A noun is singular or plural. Change the spelling on that. I'm going to abbreviate a lot here, but I'm saying the whole word. Number tells us whether a noun is singular or plural. And that's going to be significant because if it's plural, it's going to have a separate ending than if it were singular. For example, the word for daughter is philia, but the word daughters is filii. And these are both nominative forms. This is not going to be exactly like English now. Once we start getting into case endings, we are no longer in the world of English. We're in the world of Latin. It's going to be a little bit different. But you'll love this when you take German or Greek, because German and Greek do the same thing. We sort of have the same thing with who and whom, she and her, they and them. These are vestiges left over in English from when we were German. Okay, so that's number, singular and plural. Going back up to gender again, this becomes significant when you have an adjective describing a noun. The adjective has to take on the same ending as that noun, just like we did with Maria Alta. If I have a tall slave, it's going to be an altus servus. Now, these won't always match up perfectly, but 98% of the time they will. The adjective here usually takes on the ending of the noun. And you will see examples of this in the back of your book. They take adjectives and they put them in all of the endings that are possible. Case. We talked about case in our last video. Case refers to, right now, nominative and accusative. Those are the only two cases we've had. Actually, they've snuck in the ablative case with prepositional phrases like in something, like in the house, in casa. And you'll notice there's a long mark over the A in casa because it's the ablative case after the preposition in. We'll talk more about that in our practice on prepositions. But anyway, case so far is nominative and accusative. Nominative case we've used for the subject of the sentence or predicate nominative. And accusative case we've used for the direct object of the verb, what receives the action. Now we have singular and plural of both of these. So we're going to start filling in a declension chart here. Okay, let me switch colors here. So far, our declension chart is going to look like this. Okay? I've got first declension nouns, singular and plural, and I've got second declension nouns. These declensions are families of nouns. So I'm going to just draw a line here, and we have singular and plural of those too. We have nominative, and we have accusative. Nominative first declension ends in A, plural ends in AE. Singular ends in AM, plural in AS. Over here, nominative singular ends in US, ends in I in the plural here, OS in the accusative singular, UM. Getting ahead of myself. UM in the accusative singular, and then OS in the accusative plural. Now in your exercises for these chapters, they give you plenty of opportunities to use these in drills. Also the Oxford drills. I cannot emphasize those Oxford drills and exercises. And those of you using the flashcards, the paper ones, you have to make them and you will need to use them before a test. We have a lot more vocabulary tests this year than we did last year. In fact, a whole lot more. You will be using those flashcards, but the Oxford exercises for every chapter has a flashcard drill on computer. So there's an alternative way of reviewing vocabulary. Vocabulary must be memorized. And not just the word, you also have to memorize the gender, whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. And of course you have to memorize what it means in English. But flashcard, you put the Latin on one side and the English on the other. No problem. Use those little index cards. Okay, so here's our declension chart, the way it's filling in. I just wanted to give you some examples before we close out here. And I know I still have to explain person there. Haven't forgot that. Let's say here, the slaves carry the girls. Okay? All my sentences are going to sound stupid because we haven't had that much Latin. So, the slaves carry the girls. Servi. The word for slave is servus, a male slave. A female slave is an ancilla. You'll see that word later. And we want the nominative plural. You have to memorize these endings. Again, when you take a language, you're into memorization. And all the memorization techniques that you can think of come into play. So this is going to be a demand on the brain. And remember, this is a block course, so you're taking 2 days for every 1 day in a year-long course. Okay, the slave, we'll use the English word order here. Carry, P-O-R-T-A-N-T, and then puellas. Okay, what's different here than the last lesson we talked about is the fact that we've got plurals going on here. AS is the accusative plural for a first declension noun. If this were second declension, it would end in OS. The NT here is telling us we've got a third person plural. It's a subject of, in other words, this agrees with this. The I here. And again, I can change word order. The Romans enjoy having the verb at the very end. Not all the time, but most of the time. They would like to say, servi puellas portam. And that's basically what you'll see throughout the readings. You'll see subject, direct object, and verb. It sounds awkward, but not to the Roman. It sounds perfectly normal to the Roman. Okay? This is called the verb, and of course it takes a direct object in the accusative case, nominative case, third person plural, accusative case, direct object of the verb. English grammar, yes. Latin grammar, yes. French grammar, yes. Italian grammar, yes. Romans invented the grammar. Quintilian did it in the 4th century AD. So the grammar is going to be the same here for English. What you're learning here is also what you can brag about in English class. Most English teachers know their Latin students the first day of class. Okay, person. This is our last topic we need to talk about here today. Person tells us who's doing the action. And we've had just third person so far for the verb. It refers to the verb. We don't talk about person with the noun or the adjective or anything like that. So we've had T and we've had NT. By the way, the third person plural of the verb to be is sunt. They are. They are. The girls are good. Puellae sunt boni. Okay? The girls are good. Third person can end in T or NT. It'll end in T if it's singular. It'll end in NT if it's plural. Put an R in there. So the T and NT give me that information. If I see a T on the end of the verb, it's telling me he's doing it, she's doing it, or it's doing it. If I see an NT, it tells me they are doing it. Let's make this a little bit more complicated here, just to give you a challenge. Let's say the good slaves, put the word good here, carry the bad girls. In that case, we have an adjective, so we're going to say boni, from the word bonus, meaning good. Boni servi, notice that these agree here. Carry the bad girls, puellas malas. Now, does it matter whether the adjective is in front or back of the noun? Not really. You can put it in front like we do in English, but it can be after too. You can say puellas malas or malas puellas. It's up to the writer of the Latin. So Romans have a lot more leeway or latitude in their word order, believe me. It'll drive you crazy again at the beginning. And as you see all of this Latin in story form, we do what is called chunking. Ask Magister Carpinus about chunking. Chunking is taking the Latin translation and just translating little phrases of it at a time. Don't try to translate the whole paragraph or the whole sentence even. Translate, or even the whole clause. Just translate a couple words at a time. It's called chunking. And it's a little awkward at first, but we'll help you out with it. We'll give you chunking exercises there. Okay, so we've gone over the nominative case, the accusative case, the concept of gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter, the fact that the subject agrees with the verb, adjectives agree with the noun. And we're filling in our declension chart over here. Okay, well, Lente Discipli, I'll see you for the next chapter.